25, breaks a couple of tackles, and look at him go! He could go all the way! Touchdown!
Winning is not a sometimes. It's an always. Winning is a habit.
What's up, sports fans? Welcome back to another episode of Gut Check Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Williams. With me, as always, good friend and co-host, repping the San Francisco Giants jersey, Seth Floyd Hansen. How you doing this morning, man?
Tired. I'm good. It's fun wearing my Giants jersey. We talked about that. I don't get a lot of opportunities to wear my Giants jersey and my Giants hat. I haven't been overly enthusiastic about wearing my Giants gear the last few years, but I figured this was a good time as any to rep it, especially on the 4th. I'm trying to imagine that there's actual baseball on the 4th of July.
Yeah,
It feels weird not getting to sit down today in the late afternoon and eat some hot dogs and hamburgers and watch some baseball, but we're gonna pretend the best we can.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm sure you had to dust off the cobwebs, and like a true fan of any San Francisco team, you're only with them when they're good. So
Oh my gosh. You're lucky, bro. You're lucky you're all the way in Washington right now.
Oh,
This
okay.
would be
Right.
if we were recording in a studio, it'd be game over. So
Yeah. Okay, I'll hold you to that, man.
yeah.
But yeah, fans, we got a good episode today. A lot to talk about actually in sports. So we're into the month of July now. July is an exciting month for sports. A lot of stuff coming back. Basketball's coming back at the end of this month. Baseball is just kicking off with what they're calling their summer camp now. So we'll talk about that soon. But still some football news. So it's going to be a baseball podcast, but we'll open with some of the news going on in the NFL. And the first thing that's been on everyone's mind and all over the news is the signing of Cam Newton to the New England Patriots. It was long overdue. I think what a lot of us had kind of predicted this. This was the most logical fit. At least at this stage, maybe before the draft, there were some other teams that could have gotten Cam Newton. I think you liked Newton to the Chargers before the draft. But, yeah, going to New England, a lot of people have a lot of takes on this. So what's yours?
Well, first off, like good for Cam Newton to I know like there's been a lot of talk of like the disrespect, but like it's just the market. You know what I mean? Like I get that there's in no world should Blaine Gabbert be making more money this season than Cam Newton. Like I get that, but obviously those other guys weren't on the market this offseason, right? Like I don't think actually I shouldn't say that. Maybe they were and they signed. I don't know. But the point is this is so late. And Cam finally just said, I just want a chance to play and prove myself. And good for him. And this is a total like Belichick move. I never believed that they were just going to roll with Stidham. There's still reports that like Stidham is their guy, or that they still are all about Jarrett Stidham. I can't imagine you make this move if you don't intend Cam Newton to play. Like until I see Jarrett Stidham take the field and lead the offense with the ones, like I can't see Cam Newton being signed to just sit there as like insurance. That doesn't make sense. If you wanted someone for insurance, I would think you would sign someone else just from not that Cam is going to distract everyone, but the first time Jarrett Stidham throws an interception, the media and everyone's going to be like, why is Cam not in there? You know what I mean? And so I think this move is intended, unless Cam comes in and is hurt and can't play, like he's going to be the guy. And that's exciting. It sucks at the same time because we all want to see the Patriots not play very well. But I imagine a Cam Newton-led Patriots team wins more games than a Jarrett Stidham-led Patriots team.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, and that makes the most sense. It's definitely a concern about Cam Newton's health. He sat out the majority of last season. I think it was 13 games due to a variety of injuries with his shoulder and his ankle. And the ankle injury was something in the preseason too. So it wasn't even like he was into the season and then it just was kind of a freak accident kind of thing. Like it just it just happened. And then the concerns about his shoulder, being able to throw the ball downfield, I think that's what gave some teams some hesitation. And I don't think you should overlook the fact that if you get Cam Newton as your quarterback, you got to change your system, at least some level, right? I mean, he's gonna run the ball more. You don't necessarily have to commit to the full-on, Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens type offense necessarily, but it does just change what your offense looks like. I think Josh McDaniels can absolutely handle that, especially since he did have Tim Tebow, back in Denver. He can adjust. He's a smart offensive mind, and of course Belichick is one of the greatest coaches. But yeah, kind of what you hit on is a lot of uproar over his contract. So he's got a base of $1.05 million. Only about half of that is guaranteed, and then he has all these roster incentives that can bump his salary up to really $7.5 million if he hits on everything. So I don't know that that's anything other than, it's late into sort of the NFL season, if you will, or the NFL offseason. Is he underpaid? Yeah, probably. But I think it's more a testament of some of these other backup quarterbacks being grossly overpaid. I think this seems like more what you should pay a quarterback who wouldn't necessarily call him a backup quarterback because he could be your starter, but you have some uncertainties about his health, so he could just be a veteran backup. But the guys like Chase Daniels and Blaine Gabbert that you talked about, Marcus Mariota, all these guys that are like coming in to be your backup quarterback, it's crazy that they're getting paid, close to $10 million a year.
And it is, but to think that it's any sort of like intentional like disrespect to Cam is what's so like frustrating. Like there is an element here, like those guys signed the deal and you're not worried about them taking over. Maybe Mariota in Oakland or in Las Vegas, I should say. But as soon as you bring Cam Newton into the building, like there's a quarterback controversy. And it works for the Patriots because Stidham isn't a bona fide starter. He's never started. You know what I mean? So, like, it's fine. But if you bring, like, a normal team, like, is Blaine Gabbert – I don't even know where he is now. Is he in – last I thought he was Tennessee.
He might have gone to Tennessee now.
I'm not sure. I'm like, give it, for example, let's say Tennessee had signed them because they needed a backup. And now you have this issue with Ryan Tannehill and Cam Newton. And I'm just telling you right now, any of you football fans out there who, like, I don't know, you have this take, like no team has ever been successful when there's been a quarterback controversy all year. Like no team has been successful when every time your starting quarterback throws a bad throw and your fan base is automatically like, well, we've got so-and-so behind him. Why isn't he starting? Like it just is not a recipe for success. So the money is one thing. Like that's one thing, but I can tell you why a lot of these teams didn't sign him. You were only signing Cam unless you were willing to put him in as the starter. And it's a lower contract than I expected, but Cam was willing to sign it. And if Cam was willing to sign it, then it is what it is. He's going to roll with it. He's an injury risk. So there's a lot of things like that. And incentive deal, if he makes a full $7 million, is he higher than some of these other quarterbacks that have been talked about?
I mean, at that point, like barely. He's still going to be less than Chase Daniel. I think he'll just be over Marcus Mariota's contract.
Okay.
So he'd be higher than some, but not the highest paid, even backup quarterback, really. And Blaine Gabbert's with Tampa Bay now, just by the way.
With Tampa Bay, I got you. Well, yeah, I mean, could you imagine Tampa Bay signing Cam Newton with Tom Brady and Cam Newton? I think that I don't know, man. Like I'm excited to watch as a 49er fan who has to play New England this year on the road. Like I'm actually kind of mad about the signing. Because even with Stidham, it wasn't a guaranteed win, obviously. But with Cam, it definitely is. It's going to be a much closer game, and so I think it makes New England like a real threat to be like in the playoff mix at the end of the year, which I kind of already felt like they were going to be in that arena anyway, but now it really feels like they're going to be in the heart of it. And their division isn't that great. I know the Bills are good. But man, I mean, would it be the craziest thing to see the Patriots win the division again with Cam Newton? Like, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know that he makes the team 12-4 or anything like that necessarily, but what we've talked about already with this extra playoff berth, if you're 9-7 in any conference, you're gonna make it in. I mean, I really think that, or at least you're down to the wire of getting in if you're 9-7, and I think Cam Newton can actually get that team to 9-7. I kind of had them at 9-7 already, even with an unproven Jarrett Stidham. So if he's healthy, if he can get back, he's not going to get back to 2015 Cam Newton MVP. Like, it's not going to happen. I know he's working hard. I'm sure he's healthy. If he stays healthy, you're going to get a very functional and very good quarterback that can run the ball, can help the running game. And if he doesn't turn the ball over, he's going to fit into the Patriots mold perfectly. He doesn't need to push the field that much. That's not really what they're looking for. Others have kind of brought up, well, who else does he have on offense? You know, Cam Newton's one guy, but when if the Patriots really had anybody that you could name, right? So if they have someone who can run their system, they're going to be just fine. So I don't think anybody's too worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, the one concern I'd have, and you just assume Josh McDaniels is going to make some adjustments, like you mentioned. Like Josh McDaniels' system is pre-snap, know where you're going, get the ball out quick type of stuff. That's how Tom Brady made his money, and that's not what Cam does. Like, Cam drops back and he holds on to that football, and that's led to some of his injuries is holding on to the ball. I don't know if it's a simple fix. I don't know how easy it'll be for Cam. Maybe it will be really easy. I don't know, but I assume that's something that they're going to focus on when they get into training camp is, hey, you've got to get the ball out here, protect your body, and that's what we're built around. So it'll be interesting to see if he can really manage that, which I'm sure he can. Like, he's former MVP. I think he can figure it out.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. It'll be exciting to watch.
Yeah.
So the other news with football and with signings, it's a little older now. We didn't touch on it in some past podcasts, but Dak Prescott signed his franchise tender, $31.4 million for this year on the franchise tag. Quite the opposite spectrum of Cam Newton and his contract that we're talking about here. But Dak signed it early. He still technically had till July 15th to sign it, and some things could change if they get a long-term deal before July 15th. That's still technically on the books, but it's looking like Dak Prescott's going to sign and play for the franchise tag for 1 year. We'll get into my thoughts in a minute here, but what do you think about that?
Man, what do I think? I think it's better than giving him a long-term deal. I think if I was in that spot, I would have been tempted to just roll with Andy Dalton, pull the franchise tender and just roll with Andy Dalton. That would have been controversial, and it would have been, it probably would have disrupted some team chemistry. But I don't know, man. Even $31 million just is a lot of money, But I mean, good. The Cowboys to me are in a window right now, which might sound ludicrous because they didn't even make the playoffs last year. But like, if you look at the talent on their roster, like if that's not a championship window, like I don't know what is. At least it's a window that you should be one of the top 3 or 4 best teams in the NFC. That's what I would think with how much talent they have on offense. And then you guys have some really good pieces on defense with your linebacking core. You got guys who can rush the passer. Hopefully they've figured out the back end of the defense a little bit. But to me, like, they're on paper, they're there. So it makes sense. You've got to pay the quarterback a 1-year franchise tag. Like, you can live with that, right? So I think it's good. I think that's the move. I never in a million years did I think Jerry Jones was gonna just roll with Andy Dalton. So this is like the compromise I expected. But 31 million, how far? I mean, what do you think is Dak really sticking to I want 40 mil a year? Is that what his number is?
So I've never seen actually anything official that says he wants 40 mil. I think that's just speculation based on some reports that he turned down 33 mil and even 35 mil. So then people are just kind of jumping up to 40 mil, which of course, like we could get into the fact like you're splitting hairs if you want 35, 33, whatever.
Sure.
Who knows? If that's what the market is, like I get it. I'm not in a position to say, of course, like I'll take 500,000 a year, like to go play whatever, right? But this is where they're at. So just sticking with the franchise tag, like from a financial standpoint, for the Cowboys, I think this is the best bet. You spent a lot of money to get Amari Cooper, DeMarcus Lawrence, Zeke Elliott. Like you have a lot of money tied up. You also just signed Jalen Smith to a contract, even though that wasn't, top of the line for the market. That's still a long-term contract, a lot of money going to him as well. So this is kind of what they needed to do right now. And it feels like this is a tryout again with Dak Prescott and Mike McCarthy. So you got a new coaching staff, a new system that's coming in, a coach who is also very quarterback friendly and should be able to develop Dak Prescott into his system. It does seem a little odd that it's another tryout for Dak Prescott. I mean, like, what else does he need to prove? But anytime you go through a coaching change, there's going to be some changes. And like you mentioned, you bring in Andy Dalton, who's a proven veteran quarterback who had some really great seasons in Cincinnati and has some arm talent. You bring him in, and maybe you're just going to have those two guys compete for 1 year, see what you have. I don't see a scenario where Dak Prescott gets beat out by Andy Dalton this year.
No.
But if they underperform, then I think you feel a little better moving on. And then maybe Dalton was a fine backup and you roll with him in the future. I agree with you saying it is a window for the Cowboys. That's just kind of the nature of the Cowboys, I think, a little bit too. They're always talked about, so I think they're always overhyped a little bit too. There's always talk about all the talent they have on their team, but I think that's just exaggerated a little bit because, like you said, they haven't made a lot of changes to their team. You could say they brought in HaHa Clinton-Dix, and then they signed CeeDee Lamb. But other than that, they're essentially the same team as they were last year, and they didn't make the playoffs. So should they really make this huge jump, or do we just think Mike McCarthy is going to make that big of a difference too? Well, and he could, right?
Well, so they grossly underperformed last year. I don't think anybody thinks that they were. What did they finish last year? 8-8 or 9-7, but lost the tiebreaker. Like I don't think
8-8. Yeah.
I don't think anybody thinks that they're an 8-8 team on paper. And I do. I'm. There's one of two things. Okay, to me, it was either Jason Garrett or it's Dak Prescott, which I thought Dak played well last. I mean, I definitely didn't watch all the Cowboy games, but I thought Dak played well at times. He missed some big throws against the Eagles in that game they needed Week 16, but I think he played well enough to win a lot of the time. So I do think McCarthy is going to make a bigger difference, than we think. I mean, look at, and I'm gonna bring it back to the Niners, but look in 2011, Jim Harbaugh's first year as coach, and he comes in and they were like a 4-12 team the year before, and then they went on to win 13 games with essentially your same core players, same quarterback, same running back, same receivers, like same defense. And so the coach makes the difference. It just does. And Jason Garrett was just not the guy. That's how I see it. And I think that the Cowboys, if they don't make the playoffs, especially with the extra person, there's going to be, or not an extra person, with the extra playoff spot, there's going to be some real grumblings. And you tell me, Matt, you've got Andy Dalton on the team. what's going to happen if the first time you play the Eagles, you lose and Dak threw 3 interceptions? They're just going to be rioting. There's going to be talking about do we need to put Andy Dalton in the game because it's going to feel too much like last year. And so I don't think that'll happen, but that's just what you're setting yourself up for with having Andy Dalton there. What is it going to take for I think we talked about this before, Dak getting getting the extension that he wants? Like what does he have to do this year to make that happen?
I don't know that there's anything left on the field that he needs to do in order to get the extension, because honestly, I could see it a couple of ways, right? If he goes full Patrick Mahomes and wins the Super Bowl, brings the Lombardi back to the Cowboys, you're almost thinking, well, do I want to commit a whole lot of money to him now that he got us what we want?
Yeah.
Or do I just kind of want to say, hey, we have this Super Bowl we can kind of rely on now. Let's try something else now. Let's kind of move on. You know what I mean? Like, let's just go a different direction. I could see that being the call. I could also see, he wins the Super Bowl. You just say, whatever, we'll tie up all our money. This guy, because he gave us a championship, we can be mediocre for the next few years.
Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really just going to come down to what does he want his contract to look like, and then can the Cowboys budge on that? Because right now, a sticking point is the length of the contract. Really, throughout the league, quarterbacks have gone to more 3 and even 4-year contracts, just shorter, more guaranteed money so that they can get a second deal. And the Cowboys want to sign him for about 5 years, basically keep him into his prime. I wouldn't say necessarily through his prime, right? But, past the point where he's going to get another big contract, or it certainly hurts his chances of another big contract. And I think that's the biggest sticking point, more so than trying to get to $40 million.
Sure. I think he's got to get to the NFC Championship. That's what I think. I think if he, like, I guess in my head as a coach, like, I got to see him take my team to the NFC Championship. I don't necessarily think even has to win it, but how many playoff wins does Dak have in his career? He beat the Seahawks a couple years ago. Does he have another one besides that?
I think that's his only one. Yeah.
So to me, and then they lost the Rams, right? So he's got to get the NFC Championship, because that means one of two things. It means he won at least one playoff game. Mm-hmm. If he goes to the wild card game, that means he won 2 playoff games to get there. One of them on the road, which would be a big deal to me.
Yeah.
I guess if they now, even if they're the 2 seed, that would be, you know what I mean? That would be, he still would have to win 2 to get there. Or they're the number 1 seed. He played really well all year long. They win that first playoff game, and then you get to the NFC Championship and lose to the 49ers, and no one's going to blame you for losing to the 49ers. So, but you know what I mean? That to me would just be okay, this is a franchise guy. He's got ice in his veins. He's able to do it with the right coaching staff. This is what we were looking for, versus what do you blame? I'm going back and forth, but do you blame after how last year went, the team's success, which always falls on the quarterback? It just does. You don't see Tom Brady teams playing terrible through the year and not losing games they should win, Mm-hmm. And so, after watching last year, I kind of don't blame Jerry Jones for not giving him the money, because even though it's not Dak's fault, in Jerry Jones's head, he's got to be man, what am I'm paying for another season of this? Is this the best we're going to get out of him? You know what I mean? I just get that thought process. So if he gets to the NFC Championship, for me as an owner, the GM who's got to pay him, that would be the, okay, I feel like this is what I have to do now. I feel like I have to pay him.
Yeah, I definitely see your point. I mean, some of the losses, the Cowboys definitely shouldn't have lost to the Jets last year, but that was a 28-21 game, I think, was the final score, or something like that. So it was kind of high scoring. I put almost more of that on the defense. You should never give up 28 points to the Jets, especially last year. But if you want to look at Dak Prescott, in New England, they scored 9 points. Against the Eagles the second time around, they scored 9 points.
Yep.
Those are the types of games where you turn to them and say, come on, man, I know you're leading the league, but you're tearing up these trash teams. I need
Yeah.
you when it counts, right?
Right.
If they get to the NFC Championship, I like your point. They'll never lose to the 49ers in the championship game, but I could almost see at that stage you're still in your window, so you're thinking, well, let's just run it back with a franchise tag again, because even a franchise tag next year, it'll jump up to, I think it'd be like 33, 34 million. We saw this with Kirk Cousins. I think the reason that it was weird with the Redskins is that they weren't that close.
Mhm.
So they needed some stability with a quarterback, with Kirk Cousins, and then they could have built around him. I think right now you have all the pieces in Dallas. So if you just give him a one-year contract, if he's willing to sign it, he's going to make a lot of money, and you're not tying up these long-term deals. I don't know. It'll be interesting because if they're that close, the championship game, they lose. We're looking to the 2021 season. How many pieces can they keep around Dak at that point? Or do they have to kind of blow up the whole thing, and how's the rest of the team looking? So
Yeah, no, you're not wrong, and that's an option too. If Dak is fine, playing on the franchise tag, that might be the best option for both sides. I certainly wouldn't have any issues playing for 30 million, 33 million.
Yeah, and it did work out for Kirk Cousins. I mean, it didn't work for the Redskins per se, but Kirk Cousins played 3 years on a franchise tag, I think it was, at least 2. And then he got a 3-year fully guaranteed contract where he's like the highest paid quarterback right now. So
yeah, it's be interesting. I mean, good for the Cowboys. I think Cowboy Nation has to be happy. I know the guys I coach with out here and work with, like they're happy Dak's back. I've heard a few of them say I would have rather have had Andy Dalton at this point. But most of them agree the mistake was paying Zeke that money because now you have this situation with Dak. So,
yeah. So, all right. One more thing we wanted to talk about with football before we get into baseball. I know the baseball fans out there are holding on for dear hope here. But breaking news kind of yesterday, just with everything going on in the country, a lot of pressure on some organizations to relook their culture, relook the message that they're sending. And the one that is just really should be on the front of everyone's mind, and it has been brought up for probably 30 to 40 years now, is the Washington Redskins. A lot of pressure now to change their name. Nike pulled all of their merchandise from their website. A lot of it's not so much direct pressure on the Redskins, but a lot of the shareholders of these teams that are sponsoring the Redskins are putting pressure on those companies to say, hey, we're going to pull our funding for you if you continue to support the Washington Redskins until they change their name. So FedEx, who names the field, said change the name. Nike's pulling their contract. And now Dan Snyder, or at least the Redskins organization, has come out and say they're doing a thorough review of the name. But it wasn't that long ago, just in 2013, Dan Snyder, the owner, said, we will never change the name, and you can put that in all caps. I mean, that's his quote. He hangs on to a Washington Post poll from the 80s or 90s that says about 90% of Native Americans are okay with the name. Mm-hmm. I haven't looked into that poll. It is from the Washington Post, so you take that for what it's worth. It's a trustworthy news article, right? But my first thought on that is I don't know that some of these Native Americans are just caring about it that much, not so much that they approve of it, but there's a lot of stuff that they have to deal with on reservations is, poverty and drug abuse and, a lot of other issues that face Native Americans today that maybe the team name of a mediocre to bad franchise right now is just the least of their concern. It's not necessarily that they approve of it. But it's definitely good that they're looking at it now. And I'll go on the record saying I hope they change it.
Yeah, my only thing is what is the domino effect of this? I'm in favor of the Redskins changing their name as well, but But now you see, like, there was a report that the Cleveland Indians are
Yeah.
thinking about changing their name too, and then you're gonna get the Chiefs eventually, right? Like, I'm sure there's gonna be some sort of backlash about the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
You're gonna get, I mean, and you get into like a sticky situation. Well, we don't like some of the things that have happened in our history about taking land from Native Americans. So like we need to change the New England Patriots because they were early colonists, and I'm just saying this is the effect you're gonna see, and I'd be shocked if this is the only name that ends up being changed in the NFL because of this mentality we have. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this is like this is what I foresee happening. But Washington itself, if we're just sticking on that, like it probably should change. I've heard some good ideas. I hope some of the ones I've heard, like the Red Tails is a very popular one. The Warriors, which would be, if that's enough of a change, I don't know how much of a change it would be, but you could probably keep the alternate logo with the spear that they wear. Like you could keep that. I want them to go with like pigskins or the hogs or something to honor their from the 80s or whatever with their offensive line. But yeah, I mean it's long overdue. It does. I don't think it helps that Dan Snyder isn't super popular anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that hasn't helped this whole situation either. So I fully expect there to be a change, though. Like a lot of people, like Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport have said, like you wouldn't do a thorough review if you weren't planning on changing. You're not going to thoroughly review this while everyone is mad at you for the name and then be like, no, we looked at it, it's good, we're going to keep it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a name change coming. It just depends what it's going to be.
Yeah, but to talk about Dan Snyder, I mean, people have been pissed about the name for a while now.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe he's never done a thorough review, but he has just been like, nah, I like it. You know, we're gonna keep it. You know, even though people are mad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like all those names. You actually, that's actually all the ones I pulled up. The Hogs is what I had thought about the most, because yeah, it's a throwback. I'm an offensive lineman. I like it. You could even go the Red Hogs. That's an actual animal. I wasn't sure, but looked that up. So that is an actual animal. You can keep the theme. If I was in their sports marketing department, I would say get away from like the natives, the Warriors, anything like that. Just like just move past that. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to revisit this in another 10 years or 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
However things could shift. Just go a completely different direction. There's no reason you need to be tied to the Native American culture right now. And I think they're, because there could still be some backlash and some arguing. So you might as well just go your own direction, do your whole new thing, and move on from there. And, are other team names going to change? Maybe. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a Cowboys fan, and he's like, well, how would you feel if they came after the Cowboys to change it to more gender neutral, or, didn't like cowboy culture or whatever, right? And I try to be unbiased, and say like, well, if there's a legitimate argument against it, okay. I can't see that right now, but I don't want to say I just completely shut it off. Like I'd like to be open for people to voice their opinions and all of that.
Sure.
But I don't know that we're going to get to that point.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm curious. Like, I think that because of Washington's history, like what I originally was thinking, like, man, they should just like rebrand, or at least like that's always fun to see. So completely rebrand, like change the colors, change all this, and that would be a good way to like turn away from the Redskins. You know what I mean? Because if you if you go with the Warriors, like it's all gonna feel the same.
Yeah.
And I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing, as far as like people just want the name changed. Washington has so much history though. Like I can't see them changing their colors. I can't see them changing. You know what I mean? Just because they have a couple Super Bowls, right? Do they have? Man, I should know this. I know they have it two.
I think
but
it's
anyway,
two.
Is it two? So anyway, I don't think they'll completely rebrand, but you're right, because if you go to the Warriors and then in 10 years Pete, there is some backlash, then there's definitely going to be backlash against the Chiefs in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So it just is what it is. Like I'm not in a position to say anybody's right or wrong. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just ready to play some football, and if we've got to change some names, then great. Like, if there's legitimate people out there that are offended, and like, then great, let's change it, and let's move on. You know what I mean? Instead of trying to
I'll root for Team A against Team B if
Sure.
that's what it comes down to. Like, I just want to watch some football.
That's what I care about the most. And I you know what? Like, not defending Dan Snyder, but I can see why he doesn't want to change it, because it's such an original name and like such an original brand that they have built. Now that, again, that doesn't, if it's offensive, that doesn't make it right. But at least I can understand his thought process of why he wouldn't want to change it. And they have built like this very original brand with it. But again, yeah, if it's offensive, then you got to change it. You got to do something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I know you're not defending him, but any team in the NFL has an original brand, right? I mean, you can pick any mascot that's not offensive, right? There's an infinite amount that aren't going to be offensive, and that isn't another team name already. Like don't be the Bearcats or whatever, like the same as Cincinnati or something, right? Like don't be another bird name necessarily, right? And I just think
that's what. Yeah.
Like the fans in Washington aren't even going to their games. I don't think they have this huge, strong brand right now because their team's not that good. So just do a full rebrand. Try to get some more people on board and say, like, hey, we had that old name that was terribly offensive. Now we're, the Red Hogs, throwing back to our glory days.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring people back. Let's rally on that. Let's remarket ourselves. So let's be the Red Tails, let's bring a whole new culture around the team and stuff like that. So
sure. No, you're right. And the NFL is so big now that it's a like everything is its own brand. So like I get that for sure. Yeah. I think the fear you get with changing a ton of logos and colors and things is that it feels gimmicky. Like you know what I mean? Like when I'm there now, but it was hard for me to watch the Oklahoma City Thunder for the first couple of years because their court, their color, it just felt gimmicky to me. It felt like a G League team or something. Like I didn't like it, and now I'm used to it some time.
Yeah.
So whatever, that would be my fear as an owner of the marketing. Like I'd be like, I don't want something that feels gimmicky and like weird. Like all the XFL teams, like it all felt gimmicky, and maybe that just comes with being new and like something new in an old setting. So I don't know, but I don't know. That would be my fear. I'm sure they'll figure it out. And guess what? they'll play football and it'll be fine.
Yeah. But what's weird is you see teams changing their jerseys almost every year now. I mean, the Rams just went through something. Tampa Bay, Atlanta, the Browns, which I swear the Browns just have the same jerseys every year, but they're saying they're different.
The Chargers. We could do a whole.
The Chargers, right?
We could do a whole uniform podcast, and it would be awesome. I'm all about the Chargers uniforms. Look great.
Yeah, those are a good one. The Rams, not so much. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with Atlanta. I think some people didn't like Atlanta's. I'm okay with that one.
Yeah, Tampa Bay I didn't like as much. Their what do you call it? Where it kind of fades? Don't they have or maybe that's not Tampa Bay. Atlanta has one where that fades.
Yeah, it could be them. I think it might be the Rams though too.
Where it like fades the jersey color.
Yeah.
I hate that. Like I'm much more of a traditional uniform guy. So anyway.
Yeah, you're real old school.
Yeah.
So, all right, we've started to derail there, going on to the jerseys. It happens. We've held off long enough. Now we got to talk some baseball. Like I said, July 1st, summer camp opened is what they're calling it now. So it's going to be about 3 weeks, and then we kick off into a 60-game MLB season starting July 23rd, 24th. And of those 60 games, there's a few rule changes. So both leagues are going to have a all-time designated hitter. So the National League pitchers won't have to hit. I think you can keep a pitcher longer, won't have to burn up your bullpen. That's the thought behind that. And then out of those 60 games, 40 of those games are going to be within your division. And then the last 20 will be your counterpart in the other league. So Mariners will be playing some of the Giants, all right, to try to limit the travel, keep people as contained as possible. But they're not doing a bubble city or a hub city like has been proposed and like the NBA and the NHL are doing. So how do you feel about this season?
I mean, to be fair, like my baseball fandom really depends on how good the Giants are going to be. And it's not like football where I'm all in even when the Niners have been terrible, or even basketball. Like I watch more basketball just because I like it. But if the Giants are bad in baseball, like it's hard for me to get real into the season. Yeah. I'll watch it from time. Like if it's summer, I'm trying to turn on a game once or twice a week, maybe just to have it in the background. Mm-hmm. But so my point is I was pretty down on baseball this year anyway, because the Giants are going to be supposed to be on paper one of the worst 5 teams in the league probably.
Yeah.
And so I'm always my plan was always to watch in April, and just see some of the young prospects, see what it looks like. So I wasn't super high on it anyway. Now this makes it more fun. 60-game season is more fun for a team like the Giants, because while they're still probably not going to make the playoffs, and I know you've pulled up some stats on that, but like if something crazy was going to happen, it was going to happen in a 60-game season, not a 162-game season. So it's good. I'm just glad that it's coming back, because people need sports. People need baseball. I love baseball. I love baseball playoffs. Mm-hmm. That's always fun to watch. And I think baseball is an important part of our history and our country. And so I'm excited that it's coming back. I'll say that. I'm excited for anything at this point. So,
yeah, I think first and foremost, baseball has kind of botched this whole thing up until this point. Sure. They had one of the more difficult tasks, though, because their entire season was shut down. I mean, they shut down in the middle of spring training, so they didn't even get started, where basketball and hockey just needed to kind of restart. And the NFL has been lucky where they can just wait and see what happens. So baseball had to completely change what they were doing. But that being said, the commissioner and the Players Association president, very public sort of back and forth debate over contracts and what the players are going to be paid and what the league came down to. So that's been a little ugly. That doesn't help baseball. But I say all that just to bring up the fact that this right now is a perfect time for fans to get on board with baseball, because everybody who's tried to watch baseball, who's a sort of casual fan or, not committed 100% to baseball, knows that 162 games over 8 months is like a slug, right? I mean, that's a lot of games. It's hard to just be invested for that long. You watch your team go 2 out of 3, and you're like, okay, that's fine. If they go 1 out of 3 in a series, they're okay. But it's just weird to just watch game after game, and it doesn't have this huge impact. So now you're at a 60-game season. Every game is going to be worth more than 2.5 times what a game would be in a normal season, and you're all in division too, which I think is another point that's just going to make it a lot more exciting to watch. You're playing your rivals over and over again. Things can happen, as we talk about with football a lot. Playing in your division, the teams better. You know how to play against them. There's less scouting, so to speak. Like you can figure each other out. So I think that's going to be an exciting aspect of it as well too. And it's just back to back. There's going to be essentially no off days for some of these teams, and you're just going to power through it. So, like you said, anything can happen. Last year, the World Series champion Washington Nationals were 19-31 through the first 50 games. They were dead and buried, and they come back and win. Whereas you had like the Pittsburgh Pirates, were half a game back in the Central lead at the All-Star break. So teams get hot. That's what's going to be important. I mean, if some team goes on a 10-game winning streak, which can happen in a normal season in baseball, they're almost a lock for the playoffs at that point, right? So it's going to be exciting. Yeah, you talked about the FanGraphs projections I pulled up. Your San Francisco Giants were unfortunately looking at about a 0.5% chance of making the playoffs before this new season, and now they're all the way up to a 4.2% chance. So
Hop on that, get on that train, Maddie, the hype train. There's room.
No, I'm gonna stick with my M's now, because they were at a dismal 0.0% chance, but they've increased massively to a 1% chance.
Nice.
So I mean, you can't deny that hype around the team, right? So
I'm gonna throw some money down on the Mariners and the Giants, make the playoffs, dude, and we're gonna get rich. So.
We'll see. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be some good odds. The Mariners are known for starting off hot. They hit like home runs in the first 13 games last season. I think they started like 12-1, something crazy like that, and then they absolutely tanked off. We won't get to that part, but yeah, it's going to be fun. If we want to talk about the Astros, this, not to try to make light of the pandemic by any means, but it was like the perfect thing to happen for the Astros, because you're not going to have away fans booing you. You had all the distraction pulled away from you. So now you're just going to get baseball being played. And with everything else being removed, you're not going to be worried about booing, all that kind of stuff. If the Astros go out and they go 51-9 over 60 games without any cheating, right, then I think people will move past it. I think what's really going to hurt the Astros is if they go 9-51, everyone's going to say, I don't care how many games this season was, you guys are terrible now, and it's all because you weren't banging on trash cans.
Mm-hmm. I think that this season might give us an inside look as to why you play 162 games. Oh. I've heard a lot of people. So like Ryan Russillo's a guy I listen to a bunch, and he doesn't talk baseball a lot because the market doesn't want him to, but he grew up on baseball. He announced minor league baseball before going to ESPN and stuff. And he just said, like, you're going to see that the majority of the league, most of the league is going to be around 30-30, the majority of the league. And then you're going to have some of these teams like the Dodgers, these other teams that are just stacked, that are going to be pushing 40, 45 wins, and then some bottom feeders that'll be 20 or less or whatever. But you're going to see that it's going to be really close the whole time, and that'll make it exciting. But like traditionalists, like baseball is all about consistency and longevity, right? Yeah. Like even the Giants, who didn't finish great last year, they had a stretch where they played better than 500 ball for like a month. They had a streak there where they went like 20-5 or something weird like that.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, and it was right around the All-Star break, before or after, I can't remember, but then it faded away. And that's what baseball traditionalists want. They don't want that team that just gets hot and is all of a sudden in. They want the team that just does it over that course of the season. And it's just tough, because it's not a mindset of like our generation is kind of the opposite. Like we like the shorter, you know what I mean? Our attention span isn't as long, obviously. We're like goldfish. So I think that you're going to see, though, like, people are gonna make that case, like on TV and everything. You're gonna get near the end of the season, they're gonna be like, this is why you play so many games, is because now you just have a jumble of teams that are all about the same, and there was no real separation, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think that makes it more interesting for a lot of fans, but that's what the case is gonna be.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're seeing with the projections as well, because you have the teams that were at the top, they were something like 80-90% chances to make the playoffs, to win their division, and now you just have it all sort of converging on the middle. Really, a lot of these divisions and these conferences, these leagues, the teams are at like a 30-35% chance to win, right? So that does just mean it's more spread out. It's gonna be almost splitting hairs with some of these guys, with some of these teams. So we'll see. Yeah, but I just think baseball can really capitalize on this opportunity to get more fans into the game. Obviously not physically there, right? But, mic up some players like you did in spring training. Promote some of your players more. You're going to be on TV constantly, so you need to take advantage of that marketing. Build up those big player names like Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, Carlos Correa, like all these guys. You got to build them up and build up a market so you can get in that national spotlight, because baseball is huge in their own team markets. The Anaheim Angels, I'm still going to call them that, are big in Anaheim around Mike Trout, right? But across the country, not so much. There's not a lot of national appeal, and I think they can just jump on that right now.
No, that's a great point. I think the big thing that'll be here is like in April of every year when you're watching baseball, you see these teams, like you said, the Mariners start hot. They do the last couple of years they have.
Yeah.
They've come out and they've looked like one of the better teams, and then it kind of evens out. Like this year, that start is going to be like a big deal, and every game is a big deal. But you don't have time for guys to like come out in a slump or pitchers who need to find their groove. Pitchers are going to have like 5 starts the whole season, so they need and it probably goes out to more. Well, I don't know how many starts your average starter will have, but like you don't have time to like get into a groove. Like you think this is a sprint to the finish line, and if you have a team in the past that started slow but came back and were able to win the division or make the playoffs, like that probably isn't the case this year. And so the teams that start hot are going to be at a huge advantage versus like that years previous it wasn't that case.
Yeah, a pitcher will probably have like 12 to 15 starts. I think every 4 to 5.
Yeah.
It probably sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's going to be exciting. I mean, obviously we're all just itching for some sports to come back. So we'll be looking forward to that. Last quick point before we wrap up here, if you're going long. You mentioned minor league with Ryan Russillo. So Major League Baseball is canceling the minor league season this year. A lot of these minor league teams are kind of treated like small businesses, and they just couldn't operate without bringing in fans, without bringing in revenue, because they don't have the TV deals these big teams do. So that it's something to keep in mind, because I think even before the pandemic, minor league was struggling, and there was some talk about canceling a lot of these teams throughout the country. Me personally, it would be, I think it'd be pretty terrible to lose minor league, just because it's such a fun event to take the family to for cheap. You can follow these prospects, going through. I mean, a lot of these kids are playing for like pennies just to chase their dream, right? But on the other hand, if this sort of builds up the college baseball system, I think that'd be a benefit for these kids anyway, right? Just take out the opportunity of going straight from high school to baseball, put them into college, let them, get some education, get a degree. And then, I mean, the College World Series already is so cool and so fun to watch. Just build that up. Now, I've been on this podcast a proponent of paying college players in the NCAA. So, that doesn't change. They can still be making some money there, but also be supported by a college. And then you lose out on the minor league, which would be sad. But I think if you can build up an NCAA college baseball league, I think ultimately that would be better for some of these players.
Yeah, the minor leagues is great for like you said, taking people to the game. I don't think I've been to one minor league game in my life when I was a little kid, so like it doesn't have that much of an impact on me. But for these players that have the chance to go chase their dream, like I've seen my cousin go through it after being drafted by the Phillies, and you're right, he played for peanuts because of that's just the situation he was in. But he was playing baseball, he was living the dream. He literally was living the dream. You know what I mean? Like I would have killed for an opportunity like that. And if you take away minor leagues, which they are this year, like you take that away for a lot of kids. And so, but I understand that everything's a business. So either you got to make it more profitable on that end, or you go and you build up college baseball. Like there's got to be an answer here to build it up somehow. And I think that the minor league system has hurt the hurt college baseball a lot, because so many guys that leave to go play, and there's less importance. Like, why do we love college football so much? Is because those are the guys.
It is minor league.
Yeah, they're literally going to be in the NFL the next year, whereas you watch a kid in college and then he gets drafted and then he's in the league, the minors, for 4 or 5 years before he maybe gets a shot. So. Yeah. Baseball, if they can figure out a way to build up the importance of college baseball, it might impact the overall brand of the MLB.
Yeah.
That's a very complicated and intricate system, so.
Yeah, it'd be tough, but I think it would be a lot easier for, a Mariners fan, right, to jump on rooting for Washington State, right, or University of Washington. If those teams are good and that's where the prospects are coming from, rather than trying to jump on to a farm team that may not even be close. I mean, the Mariners do have Tacoma Rainiers, which is, an hour, give or take, based on traffic from Seattle. But some of these teams have farm teams that are in a different state, different part of the country. So like, how do you really stay connected with them if your team is somewhere else? So
No, I agree. There's something that's got to be done for sure.
Yeah, something to keep in mind. But fans, we are getting closer and closer to sports. Continue to be safe out there. Wear a mask. Socially distance yourself. Like, just be smart. We can get through this, and everyone can stay healthy and get out of this, and we can just get back to some normalcy. So thanks for tuning in with us for this episode. We're excited for everything that's coming out now. And we'll be back soon.
Happy 4th of July, and we'll see you next time.
Out.